Okay, fuel economy. This formula should be on your study sheet. I'm looking at your formula sheet, and it is there too. It's right there. Fuel economy is that, but it doesn't hurt adding this to your study sheet, and it's all in one place. Stop talking, guys. Giro. Answer is expressed as liters per 100 kilometers. That's the standard for Canada. In the States, they use miles per gallon. And I don't know if you're aware of it. MPGs, that's in the US, sometimes referred to as the fuel consumption, fuel economy. It's all the same. Here's one that I got off of a vehicle. That's a sample right there. And if you look at it, right, it will have liters per 100 kilometers, and it will also have miles per gallon. So it will give you both versions of it. I also need you to see, it's hard, just look at your booklet. It's hard to tell. Do you see, can you read what it says here? 10.7 and 7.5. One is city and the other one is highway. So this 9 is like the average or like the most common. So if you do a little bit of highway and a little bit of city driving, then you'll be probably consuming this much on average. And so why is that? I don't think this is news to you, but why do you think you use more in the city than you use on a highway? Anybody willing to tell us why that is? Why do you use more in the city? More because it's saying you use 10.7 liters per 100 kilometers in a city, and you use less when you drive on the highway. Why is that? Yeah. Sorry? People barely go on the highway? Not quite. Yeah, Brunel. It's hard to get, but this is telling you the car is using 10.7 liters in the city for every 100 kilometers and 9 first a meal, right? So now we're close. You actually just said it right. Yuri. Shh. Let Yuri talk. Let Yuri talk. No. I want people to hear what you have to say. You were right. Yeah. Did you hear what Yuri said? In the city, you have a lot of stop signs. You have a lot of traffic lights. What are you doing most of the time? You're just idling, right? You're not moving. So you're using fuel and you're not moving. But on the highway, you're going fast. That's one of the components. Did you know that an airplane uses most of its fuel during takeoff? Yeah. So starting from a halt is where you use most of your fuel. So if you're stopping and then going and then stopping and then going, your engine has to rev up to get you to that speed you want, and then it kind of slows down. Have you noticed that? Yeah, you should. So on a highway, your engine, once you get to that speed, it stays there. The RPMs, you know what the RPMs, revolutions per minute, just stays there. And then now you're coasting. You're actually being very efficient. Your engine is working very efficiently. You have cruise control. Yeah, that's what I do. I set it to cruise control and it just stays 100. So so you use less gas. It's amazing how much more newer cars they tell you in real time what your fuel economy is. Some of you probably have parents or whatever that have fancy cars and they have like the digital board, right? And it shows them. If you are a jackrabbit driver, like if you have a brand new, little sport car and you just give her every time, you're gonna use more gas. You're gonna use a lot more gas than if you're just driving like me, like an old man. I just like barely just go and then I slow down, right? And I time it. If I see 3 lights, I will scan. It's like, oh, I've got green and that one is just turning green, so you just slowly roll through them all. If I get a green here and there's a red over there, I'm not gonna just go crazy to get to the red, right? I'm just gonna slowly get there. Hopefully it's gonna turn green and then it's just gonna roll, right? Yeah. Sorry? They use more gas on a straight, well, because they have to accelerate so fast in such a short period of time. They use a lot of fuel. Yeah, they burn a lot of fuel. But yeah, they would not use as much if they kept it and they just kept going for a while. Yeah. So does that make sense? Fuel economy, city, you use more gas. Highway, it's gonna come down because you're actually going fast and your engine isn't working that hard. Okay? So wintertime when you're idling to warm up your car, you're gonna use a lot more fuel. Okay? So if you don't have to, don't do it. Okay. Fuel economy of vehicle, the number of liters that you require to travel 100 kilometers. That is basically what it's saying. So if you have a highlighter, okay, okay, higher fuel economy, it's a higher cost of driving. Smaller fuel economy, lower cost of driving. So I need you to understand, a high fuel economy is actually not good. Okay, you want a lower number. Fewer liters is better, right? If you have a hybrid, right, you use a lot less fuel. Okay. Uh, a fuel economy of 7.4 means that it takes 7.4, right? So if this is a fuel economy, it really means 7.4 liters for every 100 kilometers you travel. So you could actually do the math, right? If somebody tells you, hey, let's go to the White Shell, well, how far is it? It's about 200 kilometers. Then you'd use twice as much, right? 7.4 and 7.4, it's about 15 liters. So you can actually do the math and figure out how much you're going to pay. Road trip times 2, right? So it's a lot of money. Fuel economy of your vehicle will depend on when you drive, how you drive, when you drive. Just so you know, I often stay, like even if I have to go home right away, I leave later because all of that traffic, you're just going to be sitting there on a stop sign, just inching your way forward, letting other people in. So I'm like, you know what? I'd rather get some marking done, right? Uh, how you drive, types of optional equipment installed, conditions of the vehicle's engine. If you don't maintain your engine, you don't do regular oil changes, it will suffer. Like it will start not being as efficient. Optional equipment, you know, these nice, like some of these trucks have these awesome bumpers, like the metal, they weigh you down like a couple 100 pounds. And for every 100 or 200 pounds, you lose fuel economy. Like if you have people on the car versus not, it's going to make a difference, right? So be careful if you add options, it could bring your fuel economy down. I have a Jeep Wrangler and I put one of those roof racks on, like the bars come like from the body over. The wind resistance is so bad that I'm losing 2 liters per 100 kilometers. Like I have to pay more for gas because of that. Okay. Uh, so there's city versus highway fuel economy, right? The city fuel economy vehicle is different than the highway, right? And here it is. Highway fuel economy is generally smaller than the same vehicle's city fuel economy. No surprises there. And there's just a note in the United States, it's miles per gallon, right? And the US is miles per gallon. So you can easily Google it, right? If you're buying one from the States and you're like, oh, it's this much miles per gallon, let's just translate it and then you'll know liters per 100 kilometers. So no big deal there. Oh, I should probably tell you the fuel economy we have in Canada, the lower this number, the better, because you're using less liters to go 100 kilometers, right? But in the States, the bigger the number, the better, because you're traveling more miles for every gallon. Okay, so it's kind of like a reverse situation there. Okay, let's go and do some examples here. Okay, a car is driven 282 kilometers, okay, and uses that much fuel. No talking now, guys. Determine the fuel economy of the car. This should be pretty straightforward. You should recognize, right, that the fuel economy is kilometers driven. No, sorry, liters divided by the kilometers times 100. That's how you would figure it out. So the fuel economy in this case, you use 26.78 liters and you traveled 280.2 kilometers. You multiply that by 100. And let's get a number for that. 26.78 divided by 280.2. That's what I would do. I would divide them, hit equal, and then multiply by 100. Try that right now to see if you get the same. And so if you round it, you get 9.56, but you need to state liters per 100 kilometers. So what I do when I go on a road trip or whatever, I will fuel up, right? Fuel up all the way, and then look at the kilometers I drove. And then if you have to fuel up again, look at how many liters you used to fill it up. And then take the kilometers you drove and then see how much it actually was. Like that's called a physical calculation of fuel economy. Don't trust your car, it's not always accurate. B, how much fuel would you need to drive? So given this, how much fuel would you need to drive 1,500 kilometers? Right? Okay, this is how we do it. We say, well, if you use 9.56 liters for 100 kilometers, you always use a proportion for this, folks. It's the best way to do it. Then if you wanted to drive 1,500 kilometers, how many liters would you have to use? Do you remember this the first week, right? We did a lot of this. So by the way, I'm going to go arrow from the fuel economy. I'm going to say I rephrased it like this. Okay, 9.56 liters per 100 kilometers. And I just know that kilometers match kilometers. So we cross multiply and we divide. So cross multiply and then divide. So we're going to go 1,500 times 9.56 divided by 100. And our answer will be in liters, right? $143.4 liters. Let's do 40 because I've been trying to tell you to watch out for that, right? Because if it's dollars, you need to have it, and it doesn't hurt to add the zero there. So that's how many liters you would need for that trip. Watch what C is asking now. It's reversing. It's saying, what distance could you travel on a full tank which has 70 liters? You start with your fuel economy again, folks. The fuel economy can tell you either how many liters or how far you can travel with a certain amount of liters. So watch, I'm starting with the fuel economy again. And where did the 70 liters go? Up or down? Up, right? They match with liters. Thank you. And so it's going to be X number of kilometers. And in this case, you always start where your variable is, cross multiply, and then divide. So it's 70 times 100 divided by 9.56. And that is 732 point, and I will round it, watch that, it's 22 kilometers. That's my final answer. And why don't we make an arrow going from this to here as well? That both of these questions, I started with my fuel economy. Once you have your fuel economy, you can use it to predict either one. Okay? Does that make sense? I hope it does. And you could do estimation, right? It's 10 liters per 100 kilometers, roughly. Okay? Next. Example 2. So this is going to get a little bit trickier, but you will see that it's basically the same. Okay? An odometer shows how many kilometers the car has traveled. Julia filled up her tank. That's important that you start with a full tank. And the odometer read this much at the beginning, and it read this much when you were done the trip. So the difference there is going to tell us how many kilometers we drove. It says calculate Julia's fuel economy, right? You want the fuel economy if she used 45 liters. Yes. Somebody get that, please. All right. Let's keep going. Fuel economy. I'm waiting for folks to catch up. Okay. You're good, Raven? Okay. Fuel economy. Remember, it's liters divided by kilometers times 100. So we know the liters. The kilometers, watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to subtract the start, right? Because if you subtract the 2, you will get how many kilometers you actually drove. And we're going to multiply that by 100. So it looks a little scary, but it'll be just fine. So fuel economy, we're going to figure out what the denominator amounts to. So that's 45 liters over 345.8 kilometers. That's the trip. We're going to multiply that by 100. So then you go ahead and divide these two, and you multiply it by 100. That's 13.01 liters for every 100 kilometers driven. So that's our answer to A. Clearly indicate your final answer. B. This is different now. The total cost of, calculate the total cost of fuel if it's this much per liter. What, you can just go ahead and say cost Wait a minute. I will do this in 2 steps. Sorry, cost. It's 45 liters times 1.209, because that's dollars per liter, right? Once you have the liters, you can just multiply it by what it's per liter, and then you, no talking guys, 45 times 1.209, and that is 54.41 in this case. Okay. And example 3 is another variation of what we've just done, but it is I would say it has more components to it, and it doesn't break it down into A, B, and C, okay? But if you have a highlighter or something to underline, right, there's a fuel economy of this. So if they give you the fuel economy, that's very important to us, okay? If you make a 375 kilometer trip, calculate the total cost of fuel if it costs this much per liter. Okay. So to get the total cost of fuel, we first need to figure out how many liters were used. Okay. Liters used, that's the first step I'm going to take. And so you take your fuel economy and you say, well, I made a 375 kilometer trip. So you just make sure the kilometers match up. I'm going to figure out how many liters that has been. So it's cross multiply and then divide. So it's 375 times 12.3 divided by 100. And you get 46.125. Use all decimals in this case. And then cost would be 46.125 liters, right? I'm just using that here, times 1.209 per liter. So I will just keep that number on my screen and just multiply it by 1.209. So that's 55.77. So this was a 2-part question, which you should be able to figure out what needs to be done. Your first order of business is figure out how many liters. And then how did I do that? I use my fuel economy, right? So if you want an arrow, right, from this, I started with that. So if you're given the fuel economy, you start with that. If you have to calculate the fuel economy, calculate it first, then do this, okay? Try example 4. Let's take 2 minutes. You try that on your own. See if you get it. I'll do it with you. So don't talk to your neighbor. Just try it right now yourself. Lots of room. So okay, 9.1 liters per 100 kilometers. I start with my fuel economy. Amrinder, can you turn around for now? 32 liters, X number of kilometers. Cross multiply and divide. 32 times 100, 9.1. And you traveled 351.65 kilometers. No, yeah, sorry, it is kilometers. So start with your fuel economy. If it's liters they give you, make sure that liters go on top, and then they put a variable on in for the denominator. Okay. Okay. Before you start working, we're going to talk about operating costs, and you need to have a few of these on your study sheet. Okay. You need to have a few of these on your study sheet to get the marks here. So as you can tell, operating, you will, in order to drive your vehicle, you're going to have to do regular maintenance. And I do not want to see, like, operating costs, I don't want to see fuel on there, okay? You can have any of these in there. So you can either talk about brake inspection or brakes replacements. You can talk about that. Obviously, oil change would be a regular item that you should be doing every 5,000 kilometers or every 3 months, whichever comes first. Do you know what tire rotation is? Okay, if you have a car, right? If you keep them in the spot year after year, they might wear out unevenly. If you have a front wheel drive, which tires are going to wear out more? The front, right? Because they spin in the winter, whatever. So what mechanics do is they will swap them. They will actually do this. They will take the front tires, cross them, and like actually just rotate them on a regular basis. So if you do that every year, you get more life out of your tires. You can do that yourselves, right? If you have a jack, you do it at home, right? And do that. Fuel filter replacement, it's rare, but sometimes if you gas up at some gas stations do not have good gas and it clogs up the fuel filter. Oil filter replacement needs to be done every time you change the oil. Coolant flush every 80 to 100,000 kilometers. Wheel alignment, you would only want to do a wheel alignment if you did any repairs to the front, like any components in the front steering, you want to do an alignment, okay? It is laser thin margin, so don't do it yourself. I know some of you are probably mechanically inclined. Spend $100 or 150 and go to Canadian Tire or wherever and do an alignment there, okay? Rust proofing, do you know what that is? Have you heard of rust? I forgot the name right now, but there's a place, I know there's a place on Region. They actually rust proof your whole car. They go into your door panels with like snakes, they call them, and they lubricate everything, the whole car, so that there's no rust happening. So there's a special oil they spray in every panel of your car so that the rust doesn't start, okay? That costs $300 to $400. So if you want to do that, I would recommend that. Wiper blades replacement, air filter replacement, cab filter replacement. Inside your cab, they're usually by the glove box. Behind the glove box, there's a filter that filters the air you breathe inside the car. So I would replace that every year. Okay? Battery replacement if it needs to. Anybody have some more examples? If you want to throw them in here, if you want to share, you can do that. Car washes, I don't know. I kind of don't. I'd like to have these, like car washes. I guess it would be, but these are like major or more expensive. So you got to do these ones for sure. Light bulbs, if light bulbs go, your signal light. Yep. Sorry? A Tesla? Oh, well, I don't know much about it, but I'm sure there'll be regular electrical components checks. I'll do some research on that. That's actually good. I've seen more and more Teslas driving around in Winnipeg, so it's a good question. Um, one thing oh, how do you know your signal lights? Because I always thought people know this. How do you know your signal lights are gone, are burnt out? Anybody know? You can actually tell driving. There's a sound you're listening for. If you're trying to turn and it flashes really quick. Have you ever heard that? Like it flashes really, not just like the regular tick tock, tick tock. It goes tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. That means that either the front or the rear signal light is burned out. So you have to check and replace that. Uh, what else can I tell you? If you ever plug in a trailer to your car, be very careful that those connections, they can actually damage your car. So I would always turn off my car, plug it in, and then turn it on, right? Things like that. If you do any work on the car, oftentimes mechanics will take the battery off or like the connectors, they will remove them so that there's no short circuits anywhere and you burn something, right? You know what fuses are? Fuses in a car? You don't know what fuses are, or you don't want to tell me what fuses? Okay, cars have usually, here it is. There's usually two places. One is inside and one is actually under the hood. Here, if you open your hood, there's a box like this with fuses in them. And you know the cigarette lighter or the one where you plug in your phone? You can burn that sometimes if you overdo it. And it's going to be one of these here. And you can buy some. I always have some spares in my car. You can buy them for like $5 on sale, like a whole bag full of them. But they're made to protect your car. If something goes wrong, they will burn out. You can actually tell if you take them out, it'll be all black. And they're different amperage, so you can't just do whatever you want. Like the red ones, they're a certain amperage, so you got to replace a red with a red and a green with a green. And sometimes your lights will not work because one of these is burnt out for whatever reason. There's a map of which one is which. If you look at the lid, on the back side of the lid, it'll tell you dome lights. It's this one right here. So you go and replace that one or you check it, right? So I like to tell you things like that because sometimes you can go and spend a lot of money for something you could have fixed just like that yourselves, right? So do some research before you spend the money. Okay. Uh, one more thing before I let you work. Preventative maintenance versus emergency major repairs. The name says it all. Preventative, to avoid emergency or major repairs. Changing oil regularly prevents, right? Engine breakdown, right? You protect all the moving components. There's actually a lot of explosions happening in your engine, right? Every time so you have to make sure the oil is changed regularly. Rotating tire prevents uneven wear, right? So just say uneven wear. That's what rotating tires does. So you rotate the tires to prevent uneven wear, which then would lead to you having to buy a new set of tires. A new set of tires costs a lot of money, $600 to $1,000 depending on the size, or more. It could be $1,500 if you have fancy tires, right? Rust proofing prevents, right? Rust from occurring. Let's just put that down. And you know that when you see rust, when you see it, It's because it has happened for years already inside. Between the door panels, water sits there. It cannot go anywhere. And so it starts already. So when you see it, it's almost too late, right? And it's very expensive to repair. And so when you do the rust proofing, there's a film of oil in there. So even if water sits, that oil will kind of push it out, right? Like oil and water do not mix, right? So do it if you can, if you have the money. Okay, that's it for fuel economy, folks, and operating costs. So page 43. And if you're done, yesterday I asked you to work on 6 and 7 here on this one. I would strongly encourage you to, if you're done this, go back and do 6 and 7. You can even do 8 and 9 already. It's review for the test. And I will post the answer key to that. But you need to first do a fuel economy before you do that.